So welcome everyone here to Lymph Laugh Live with Elisa, and our guest tonight is Theresa Mueller. And I know I was joking around, but I think a lot of people really mean it when they call her the Mother Teresa of the equine industry. She's gone literally the extra mile in education for lymph. She went all the way to Germany, the same place where my instructor had gone, and Dr. Lerner had talked all about their great love of learning of the lymph system. And she brought it back here to the United States, specifically for horses. And as we reopen America, you know, we can't forget there are animals, just like human beings, suffering every day with different forms of lymphedema and lymphatic issues. So Theresa, I want to bring you on, and I want to interview a little bit about you before we get into the PowerPoint. So Theresa.
Yes, ma'am.
How did you get into the passion for lymphatic drainage for horses? What got you there? What made you go all the way to Germany to learn?
Got it. And that's where it all began. So that's part of my presentation. So there was nobody to help me. There was no one. They didn't know anything. And that was like 25 years ago. And so in the equine world, they still don't. So it's no surprise, Lisa. As you know, as you said on the first show that you had to fight for every inch of publication to bring the lymph into the medical world. It's pretty much non-existent in the equine world. Well, they're getting better, but we're still not there. When we'll go into the presentation about the challenges that we have with that. And it's very sad. We don't euthanize people. We do the animals. No. Yes. So it's you need to have a strong, you need to have a very strong stomach. And you have to, there are times you have to walk away, no matter how much you think you know you can help and bring something to the table. That's the tough part. The great part is always when you see something turn around in a matter of hours.
Yes, and just for everyone to know, if you didn't catch that little bit that we put on a previous interview just done recently about Theresa, her love of humans and of horses is, you know, beyond none. She's actually been working on the front lines there in New Jersey. And I just wanted to talk a minute about that too. I mean, talk about having a strong stomach, Theresa. What have you been doing there? What have you seen on the front lines with COVID?
Well, that's been a very interesting thing. Things have certainly calmed down. When it was first began back in March, there was just pandemonium. There was such fear and anxiety. We got redeployed. I'm a massage therapist, and in the state of Jersey, I can't use my animal license, so I have to continue to work part-time on the human segment. And I work for Atlantic Health Systems, and we have an integrative program where we go to oncology, pediatrics, surgical units, the mother-baby units, and we do massage, Reiki, those kinds of activities. And so we got redeployed to help out other services such as environmental. When moving COVID patients from floor to floor, things like that, you have to disinfect the elevators. When a COVID patient leaves the room, you assist the aides, donning and doffing their garments. Because once the aide goes in the room, the aide cannot come out until it's totally disinfected, and you're outside the door handing things to them because they don't want the doors opening or closing wide because you're letting the virus out, even though they're negative pressure. So it's been an experience. It's disturbing to see signs on the door that says "Do not resuscitate." You see people who are purple because of the lack of oxygen, and it was a very trying experience. It's much better now. It's much calmer, but they're discovering new ways now to change and meet the ever threatening issue of viruses and infectious diseases in the hospital. It's going to change forever.
Oh my goodness. And then, you know, we're thankful, at least we're humans, despite all these issues trying to get proper health care. We have animals, people have pets and horses. I know that this is a major industry. I see it in Florida, I see it up north, I see it in Kentucky. And if it's hard for us to get help, imagine how difficult it is for these horses and
Oh,
their
it's
owners, right?
it's incredible. It's incredible. So that's the passion that I bring to the table.
So Teresa Heal, this first slide here, it says Holistic Equine Academy of Lymphedema. That you're the founder.
Yes, I am. And that is the photo of Tom. They've kind of muted it. And Tom is the face of equine lymphedema. I'll tell his story in a few minutes when we go through the slides. So that's, we honor him today. He's gone 10 years, but he was the first horse that we worked on. And major horse that we worked on. His leg was over 3 feet in diameter.
Wow.
And he was a draft horse. So he was a big boy. He was a big horse. And they're not like people. You put a person on the table and tell them, you know, you expect them to lay there while you wrap their leg. A horse doesn't always do that. They want to get out. They want to walk away. They don't know what you're doing. They don't know who you are. So you certainly have different challenges.
Wow. So I'm going to put this next slide up, Teresa. I
Yeah.
love the Chinese proverb, but you shed light on it for us.
Okay. The word Yang Yu means Chinese proverb. And I live by this motto. So when someone shares something of value with you and you benefit from it, you have a moral obligation to share it with others. So if you find this presentation informative and you may want to share with somebody, please pass it on.
Beautiful. I love the heart of the Chinese. That's the way they are with all things teaching martial arts. If once you learn something, it's our obligation to share it with others. So let's go ahead and tell us about these horses. I love all your stories.
Okay, we're going to go to the next. Okay, this is how it happened. And I believe as a massage therapist, we believe that nothing's by chance. You're dealing with energy. You're dealing with the other side, okay? So we had a horse named Captain. That was him in 1995. And he had intermittent lymphangitis. And the vet said, oh, there's nothing you can do, just walk him. That's it. I said, well, what do you mean? I couldn't even spell the word. I was in a corporate environment. I didn't even know what it was. I was like, what is this? And that was the answer. And then my horse, Dakota, that's him. That was a picture taken of him in 2010. He had an accident, which led to a leaky gut and colic. And I learned very late in the game about chronic illnesses that it has to be managed not only from the outside in, it has to be managed from the inside out. And that's what drove me to do this, because I had 2 horses at the same time. I said, how can this be that all these animals come to this house and they all need some sort of help? Not a little bit, a lot. And I'm like, it was insane. But, you know, it was the platform that I am on today because of them. So I honor them as well. So that's how we got started.
Teresa, it's amazing when I'm looking at the word lymphangitis and leaky gut and colic. This is something I think everyone can just relate to, and you just think, oh, that's humans. And yet here it's horses having those same uncomfortable, actually painful conditions that people have, and what your vet told you to do, well, all you can do is walk them. And you've learned since then, there's so much more.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that with Dakota was he put me into the holistic. He had an accident and we had him on meds for 5 months. And I didn't know this at the time. As Michelle Obama says, you don't know what you don't know. And we didn't know that the meds were leading to a leaky gut. I didn't even know what a leaky gut was. you know, that the horse got chronically ill, and the vet costs were escalating, and then the light bulb went on. The other thing about his injury was in 5 months, and I just figured that out tonight, I was thinking about it, it destroyed his gut. It took 5 years off his life. And it was the meds. And when we get into this presentation a little bit more, you'll see what I mean by that. And I am convinced that the meds that he was on shortened his life by 5 years. There's not a question in my mind, not a question in it. And now that I'm collecting statistics, it really validates it. Now, before it was a hunch, it was a gut, it's what I believed, but now I'm getting the facts. Very different. So that's how we got started.
Right now, I spoke to someone who had COVID, and they had put this person on so many high-level rounds of antibiotics. They just told me this yesterday, how their stomach just feels like it's ripped up, and they were having problems with like a leaky gut. So again, yeah, so it's just testament what you're saying. I'm going to go ahead and bring it to the next slide so you can tell us more.
Okay. So my journey actually started, I was in corporate for many years until December 2003. And then we had a career change. It was called downsizing. And I ended up in the healing arts. Actually, I was laid off on December 15th of 2015, and January 16th, I was in massage school. Actually, the 17th was my mother's birthday. And that was in the Institute of Therapeutic Massage here in New Jersey. And then I became the certified massage therapist. And of course, now that I heard the word lymph, it rang a bell and I wanted to know more about it. So when I graduated, I started looking into it, and I ended up becoming a lymphedema therapist. It was very funny because I went to the Steve Norton School. And when I spoke to him, he says, well, you know, Theresa, in August of 2006, that it's going to change, that, you know, massage therapists will no longer be able to do what physical therapists, you know, they changed the whole rules of the game because of Medicare. He goes, are you sure you want to do this? And I said, absolutely. He goes, but you know, you realize there's limited work as a lymphedema therapist. I said, I know, but I still wanted, because I wanted that information. And so then later on, somebody gave me an article, and I found the school in Hanover, Germany, and they certified people as certified equine lymphedema therapists. I called the school, I spoke to the head professor, they accepted me, and I went. And then actually it was March 31st we came back, and 2 weeks later, in April 15th, I won't forget that day, I was diagnosed with breast cancer just 2 weeks after I came back. And it was everything. So what did I learn through this? I'm going to tell you what, there's a better way, a much better way to handle chronic conditions, whether it's cancer or a leaky gut. There's a better way to do things, and a kinder way. So that's the journey. But I will offer this to you, Elise, and it's your call. I would be more than happy to talk about my cancer journey and what I did and what I didn't do. And some of the tests that are available in the States. And like, for instance, I know on the first call that we had, somebody wanted to know, well, is there a way to measure the plastics in your cell, in your body? And there is. And it's in the cells. And I think it's out of Washington or Oregon. But I have that information somewhere in my files. So if you want, at any time, I'd be more than happy to share that journey.
In fact, you know what, Theresa, we will. We need to do another show just on breast cancer, and I'd love to have you and my friend who actually got me into lymphatic drainage because she flew habitually from Boca Raton to Germany for the treatment right where you were. The two of you would be a dynamic duo to really bring us up close and personal with this manual lymphatic drainage, how the German citizens and the medical community really embraced it, surrounded it, and enveloped it, and then grew it. I mean, to the day, it's still the hub of lymphology. That's where people go, and celebrities in the United States still go. So we're grateful you went there and brought everything you could back, just like Dr. Lerner and Steve Norton and all these folks. My goodness. So yes, we'll have you back for that one. But let's go
Definitely.
ahead, let's look. What
Right.
happened?
Okay, so this is me with Dr. Jacobs. You may know her. She was actually Farrah Fawcett's doctor. And they did a documentary on her called her the Rogue Doctor. She was absolutely phenomenal. And that was the 2010 in March. And you have to think out of the box. And even with COVID, you got to think out of the box. You cannot limit yourself just to what, quote, the experts say, because some of the experts don't know it. And so you have to be careful with that because you got a lot of legal implications here. But for anyone who's fighting any kind of chronic condition, whether it's cancer, MS, Parkinson's, you really need to, I suggest, to think out of the box. And it wasn't for them who found they don't find a root cause in this country. They manage it, but they don't find the root cause. She found it. And that made the difference. And that's why I believe I have remained cancer-free for so long.
Yes, you lived to tell the story about it and not go through what would be considered traditional treatment here in this country.
No, I couldn't do it.
Wow.
It wasn't there. So let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to get into my horses.
Oh, there he is.
Will it go?
Yep, that's
There's
Tom there.
Tom. This was on Christmas Eve in 2009. He was at the Blue Star Rescue and in Parma, Mass. And unfortunately, through different number of circumstances, they're closing their doors. But this was Tom, and he came from New York State, and he ended up being a carriage horse down in Philadelphia. And the person that started the rescue was a carriage driver. That's where she met Tom. So when she started the rescue, he's one of the first horses she took up there to get him out of the city because he didn't like driving. And people were very grossed out at his leg. They didn't know what to do with it. It wasn't good customer service. Nobody wanted to see a leg like that in the streets, in a beautiful carriage, taking, drive around Philadelphia, wherever they were. So he was retired up to the farm. And that's when they contacted me.
Well, Theresa, just real quick too, I'm just thinking about the overall function of the poor creature. How would he be able to do that service with a leg that's swollen, range of motion and all that, just looking at his knee, patella and everything?
Right. Well, that was the issue. So that's why he ended up there. Because the next step was euthanization, and they didn't want to euthanize him. So we'll move on to the next one.
And okay. There we have challenges of lymphedema.
He can't get up. Now, remember, these are animals of prey. Notice where those horses are. Is there anybody standing next to him? No. Because, as you know, with lymphedema, it has a very strong odor. There's a smell. And these are animals. So when an animal is sick, it's going to attract coyotes, wolves, bears, etc., etc. So the healthy piece of the herd doesn't want anything to do with him. So they isolate him. So because their survival depends upon it. So you don't, so that's where we differ than humans. We're not, people aren't coming after us because we've got a swollen leg. They may stay away from us because we have a body odor, but we don't have that fear that we're going to get eaten up. And obviously he's a big boy. He was a Belgian. He must have weighed, I guess, 1,800 pounds at the time. So getting up and down is very difficult for a horse because when they go down, it's very difficult for them to get up. So when they do go down, they generally stay for very short periods of time, maybe 10, 15, maybe most 20 minutes, and then they're up again. So this is a picture on the right there. That's my husband. His leg was so big, he couldn't get his arms around it. That's how large his leg was. And as you know, you're supposed to fill in and have it like a cone shape. Well, that was very difficult. That was a lot of wraps that we went through. But this is Tom, and he got his wrap. So we're proud of that. And he was a good boy for the most part. So let's go on to the next slide. Now, this is a very interesting photo, the one that he loved this. When they brought Tom into the barn that day to be worked on, he had a buddy. He only had one friend. He was a ladies' man. He loved the mares, but the mares wanted nothing to do with him. But he did not want to be in the barn. And it must have been, God, -10. It was one of the coldest days I think I've ever experienced. And we were freezing. And he did not want to be in that barn. And the minute you touched him, he was just jigging from one side to the other. He wasn't going to let, and he didn't want you to touch that leg. They're very funny about it, because a lot of the horses will not let you touch their leg, because if somebody has their leg, they can't get away. Think about it. All right. So I got an injury here, and you're going to try to work on my leg, and I may not be able to get away. What is kicking in? It's the fear. I got to either fight or flight. So he didn't want me to work on him. He wouldn't even allow us to groom him. So I finally started doing the massage, and he turned around and somebody captured this photo. And then he stood there, Elise, as quiet as a church mouse. He wouldn't move. It must have felt so good, because for so long, that leg, and that thing was fibrotic. It was hard. But I actually was able, from the heat from my hands, we were starting to loosen up some of the tissue. And he just stood there. And when he would come in at night, after we finished this treatment, the people at the rescue would say, he would stand there and give you his leg. Please wrap it. So the next photo was, this is funny, it says the tears of joy. This is interesting because we wrapped his leg, and then we get up the next morning, and that's the owner, Pam, and she was hysterical crying because she goes, it didn't work. The wraps fell. And I'm like, yay. And of course, she didn't understand what that meant. So when we actually unwrapped it, we must have lost about 25% of the fluid. And if you look way down, he's got a little sore down by his leg there. There's a little crack there. He couldn't even bend that the day before. This is in like maybe 14 hours. And he was stage 3. Now we have 4 stages in humans. You have 3 stages in horses. He was at elephantitis. He was the last stage. But even as bad as he was, we had improvement.
Amazing, amazing. I can see the difference between the left and the right, even through the tail, Theresa.
Yeah.
He came inches overnight.
Yes, that was 14 hours.
Amazing,
amazing. It was. And actually, horses do better with manual lymph drainage than people because of their system. The way we have the same elements like the pre-collectors and so on and so forth, but they have more elastic fibers than we do. Okay, we'll go to the next one. Yeah, we're alike, but we're very different. So you got to know both. So this is how it was born. When I came back to the States, I was helping a lot of people, but I couldn't do this alone. I'm only one person. And so I decided to create a solution, because I've been there, done that, and I know what it is, the emotional toll. But now I found my silver lining, that I'm able to help other people with this. And hopefully we get more professionals, and we can get more professionals in each of the states. They can help people in their own area. And that's the way we really need to do it. So that's what I'm hoping to accomplish in my lifetime, at least. So that's how this was all born, because just out of a simple need, people need help.
So yeah, Theresa, we both were on the same page, just to share that with everybody, that originally when we both started working, we were working not really with the intention to be instructors. That was But when you've got so many people calling you, wanting to fly you all over the place, and you just can't get there, that's when you know you need more therapists, and they need to be local and accessible in those neighborhoods. And you've got
Absolutely.
my expertise here, so we applaud you. You can hear me clapping on the other side of the screen and thanking you for doing this.
Yeah, and that's what happened. So I took something that was negative and made it into a positive. So, and hopefully before I close my eyes, we'll touch many more owners and horses. And now you have to realize another thing, it's just not a person, you're managing people, but you're managing a person and a horse. So you got really two different entities there, two different species that you're really engaging in. And that's the healing power of both. So I think that's pretty exciting.
Absolutely.
So what I did was when I came back and I decided I needed help and I needed professionals to come in and help me. And I said, well, how big is this problem? Well, I went looking and there was nothing. I was like, oh boy, here we go again. There is nothing available statistics. What was the impact financially to the community? What's the impact to the owners? So on and so forth. So I developed, be part of the research. And we post this on our webpage, and I have people from all over the world. These are all the places. This is just a sample of where we've gotten them. Now, I've gotten this from the most unusual countries in the world. This would blow you away. You can see France, the Netherlands, and things like that. I've gotten requests from Turkey, a horse named Atlas. We've just got one recently from Croatia, another one this last month or two from Slovenia. We've got one from Pakistan. She's a thoroughbred. It must have a lot of sand there because in the photo it looked like very white sand. She was on the track and she got injured. She got caught up in a fence or something. And so these are not places that you would even think I would even get a call from or even answer the survey, but that's what we're getting. So it's just not here in the States. They're looking for answers globally as well. And we have a very strong interest from a number of equine therapists from Netherlands, quite a few. And in fact, they were supposed to come for a class in April, and then COVID happened and they shut all the international travel down. So we're waiting for it to open up. So we've got several people in the Netherlands because I have a lot of drafts over there. It's a big draft country and who have this problem. So this is, and what it gave me was a lot of financial information, like what is really the impact? So this was really a very, very insightful endeavor that I took. So I get requests 3 or 4 times a month, all the time answering the survey. And it's really very enlightening, also very sad. And people are very frustrated. But
Yeah, and the impact when we're talking finances too, and with owners I've spoken with, years ago, animals would actually be put down for lymphedema when they became unuseful or unproductive to that owner.
well,
And
they still are. And that's yeah,
well, I
unfortunately.
jumped ahead. I'm sorry. we're
Well,
gonna let you into that. You tell them,
no, it
Teresa. You
is. No, it's horrible. It's nasty. In fact, there are 2 horses. I don't know if it's been done yet up in Maine. And this woman calls me. She's just beside herself. And they're 2 drafts and they're out at a rescue and they have the lymphedema. And she volunteers there, her time. And the owner says, as soon as spring comes, I'm going to shoot them and we're going to put them down. They're just not worth it. That's what Jen basically is saying. This woman offered to take the horses off the property, relocate them so she can become a certified equine lymphedema therapist and manage these horses. The woman will not sell them. Why not? She can't even make the feed bill for the rescue. So why wouldn't you sell them? And it's insane, but that's what they do. She says, come spring, I got to put down, euthanize 7 horses, and it'll cost me $5 with a bullet. And so this woman that I know, she offered to pay to euthanize 2 of the horses. So she says, no, that's okay. A bullet will do. That's the attitude. So that's the hard part. That's very cruel. Very, very cruel. So anyway, here are the challenges. Well, it's no different than it is for humans because it's not well understood, because it's not taught. So you can't teach somebody if they don't know it, they can't help you. A vet is not taught it in vet school. They're taught how to control the swelling through the drugs, but they don't understand the methodology behind the protocol and what's needed. And vets in Germany are trained on how to massage and wrap. You will never get a vet here in this country to go in, massage, and wrap. That is not going to happen here. So this is, no, it isn't. The vets tell them all the time, there's nothing more than I can do. So and that's what my vet told me, go walk them. So you have an establishment that's telling you there's nothing you can do. And then I come in and say, oh, there's something we can do. And they said, well, why didn't my vet know that? So you're really fighting the status quo and raising awareness. That's the biggest challenge that we have. Another one is I'm using a standard wrap every day, but the swelling isn't going down, it's getting bigger. Well, they wrap the legs on a horse to protect them because it's very sensitive in the lower cannon bone area for injuries. And so they do that when they're doing polo. You see all the horses that are wrapped around their legs. When they go riding or they do some sporting events, they generally will either wrap the legs or put them in a boot to protect that area. And they don't understand why it keeps growing. So the other thing is, and it's no different in the human world, everybody's looking for a quick and inexpensive fix. Well, you're managing a chronic condition. It's a process. There are no quick fixes. You need education. If you're a diabetic, what do? They send you to class, how to eat right. You have to chart what you eat. And there are always challenges with a chronic condition, but it's also manageable with education. So it's common that we have both synergies with is compliance. You know it better than anybody, Elise. There are those people who are compliant, who will wrap, who will do what they have to do, and they get the best results. Am I right or wrong?
You're absolutely right. And in this case, it's not the horse, it's getting that owner to take that responsibility to do that commitment daily.
Absolutely. And it's a financial one too. So it becomes very challenging from that aspect as well. So we share some of the same challenges in the human world as we do in the horse. So it's compliance, it's education, it's awareness, the same issues are there. So the people who get the best results are the ones who follow through. And that's with anything in life, whether you're managing diabetes or any other kind of chronic condition. Those who follow through and are committed to making changes have the best results. And it's no different whether you're 4-legged or 2.
I love that, Theresa.
It's true. Okay, so what this is, I wanted to know problematically when this is on our survey, how long does the swelling last? 78% of the horses owners say it never goes away, never. And now what we did is we took all the numbers and we calculated it out. So the first initial visit's around $1,100, okay? And they have flare-ups every year. This is the time that they have flare-ups because it's fly season. Humans don't live outside. When the weather gets hot, what do? They go into air conditioning. They have to live with the mosquitoes and the flies and maggots, all right? So that's another challenge that we have. So after the initial consultation, every year you're running into about $550 per visit. All right, over 3 years. So that gives you $1,650. Now we have hidden costs. And this is where this becomes so important. The colic is very instrumental because many of these horses have been on so many medications that it causes them to colic, and ultimately they'll die from it, from a severe colic. And a colic will run, it could run you anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 for one visit, or if they have surgery. The average is about $2,000. So you're looking at, by the time you add this up in 3 years, you're talking about $11,000. I'm going to tell you what, that's a good number. Unfortunately, that's a good number. That's an honest number. That in 3 years is what's going to cost them. And it nickels and dimes them to death. And they don't see it. They don't understand what's coming down the road. And that's part of our job, or my job, is to educate and say, hey, let's just slow this progression down, the disease down. Let's put some, invest. It's not an expense, because if you think it's an expense, the training, I can't help you. If you see this as an investment to help your horse and learn something, then you're on the right track. So that's really what the cost comes in 3 years. That's a good number, $11,000. That's a lot of money.
I can see that, Theresa, and you're so right. It's the same human or horse when you break it down, and you don't want to be the bearer of the bad news, but this is a progressive disease, human or a horse. It doesn't go away. It doesn't get better on its own. And if you're thinking to take the shortcut early on, it's only going to cost you more down the road when we have to use more tools and interventions that could have really saved that owner money up front had they had that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you know the drill. The drill's the same, Lisa. You see it with the patients that you saw in the clinic all the time. But this is, you know what, we're not disposable like the horses are. You know, they'll go send people to the sale. We don't send them to Mexico to get slaughtered. You know, so this is where it takes a lot of willpower, if you will, and have a strong stomach, because there are times you just literally cannot do anything. It is out of your scope of practice, and that's something you have to really have to engage in that and know what your scope of practice is and not go out of your boundaries.
It's like they say, you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make them drink.
Nope.
You give information and they make an informed decision.
Now, this was a very interesting thing. 95% of the owners do not want to euthanize a horse. So that tells me there's a market there. 95% said, no, I don't want to do it. That's good. 4% said they did euthanize a horse because their back was against the wall. They were so spent emotionally, mentally, financially, that it was the healthy thing for them to do and let it go. And that's what the 4% was. So I think that this is what this survey told me. Do we have a market? Yeah, I think we do. 95% don't want to euthanize them. So that's a good news story.
That is beautiful. They really don't want to do that to their horses if they just knew that there was an alternative treatment like this. Right.
And then, of course, because you have to realize by the time they come to me, they've already spent a couple grand, you know? So that's what happened. You know, you'll learn to weed out who your customer is and who is not. So we go over that in class as well. So what do we offer? This is our certification process. We have a home study guide. It's very basic. It's the home study guide. We do online training for the layman's grooming technique, which is fun and easy. You can get a kid to do that. It's a lot of fun to do that with the kids. And we also have the MLD sequences online, the head, the front, and the hindquarters. And we have it both online and in-class sessions. I always recommend the in-class sessions because you always want to work the pressure in your hands. You want that pressure, stretch, and release right. I'm not so much concerned about the sequence because we have charts, we have numbers, you follow the numbers on the chart. If you could follow the dots in the coloring book, you can follow the sequence. I'm more concerned about the quality of your strokes. And that's why I think the in-class session really becomes really important. So you can do a combination of both, which I highly recommend. And then we have the wrapping, which is a 2-day in-class session. I'm not doing wrapping on the at this time on the internet because nationals would like us to have an in-class piece, and that's where that comes in. Now, the secondary class is the MLD. It's a 2-day in-class session. It's this exact same class as part of the one for the certification. I was getting phone calls from equine massage therapists saying, I'm not ready and I don't want to become a certified lymphedema therapist, but I just want the MLD. Can you give a class in that? So it's just a cut and paste. It's the same exact course, except these are the ones that are in class. And I always recommend people come to the in class. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of interaction. You know, I know with the COVID, we're doing a lot of online, but you still miss that synergy because we're humans and we need that touch and we need that communication. So we do offer both, but I always suggest that people take the 2-day in class session. And that's our program.
To really begin. And now you do also offer it in some of the other states too, Theresa.
Right. We offer it right now. We have one in will be in South Dakota. Yeah, Gillette. No, Gillette, Wyoming, because it's on the border of South Dakota. It's Gillette, Wyoming in August. We had to reschedule that because of COVID. We have a class scheduled outside of Seattle on Vishlan Island. I heard it's very beautiful. I haven't been there. And we're looking to put one in Virginia and possibly Ohio. And I'll be working on that this week. Virginia is pretty much a done deal. I just got to put all the paperwork and post it on, it's outside of DC. So anybody interested in what's a East Coast, you want to come down there. I do about my home. Also, we got 2 horses here, so we do in-class sessions here too. So we're waiting for the state to open up. I'm waiting for the state to open up so we can start doing start getting the in-class training sessions back. But that's basically what the program is. Okay.
Now, can I ask this too, just so that everybody knows, because I know we have people in Florida, North Carolina, and Kentucky that are also interested. They own horses. They're not a therapist. Can they attend your course as an owner so that they would be able to learn this and be able to manage?
Absolutely. And I'm looking for somebody in Florida. If somebody has contacts in Florida that has a barn, I'll be more than happy to have some training down there.
Leslie here, and Leslie's connected to the area of Ocala, and I know that we have some there.
It's all
and also
horse
the
country.
Yeah, horse country. So I left this slide up here though because I wanted to make sure everyone had your email there, healequine.com.
Right.
And there we go. That's it. And there's an application process too.
Yeah. I put the application process together, and it was a brainstorm of mine. If you go on there, we have Kelly and Toby. This is a typical experience. She fixed her own horse named Toby. He's now passed. And the reason I put it up there is this is my philosophy. If you're prepared, you're going to be okay. You got to know what you're walking into. I don't want people taking my classes. Oh, I just need a CEU. Go find someplace else. I'm not being rude. I don't want to be flip, but I'm looking for committed people because this became an inquiry from a passion to a calling. And I want people who are going to be passionate. I don't expect you to have a calling like I have, but certainly to have a passion to bring change about. And I wanted people to be prepared because the video of Toby and Kelly is typical. The exception, it's the rule. So if you know and you see that video, you can say to yourself, would I personally be able to manage this emotionally? Okay. The other thing is, I have a video up there which some of the equine wanted equine lymphedema therapists, and it goes into the finances, your ROI, and things like that. And also, then I have answer the application questions, and they're open-ended questions. And we did this because I want to make sure we have the right people for the right reasons. And I want you to know what you're getting into because it is tough. We got a lot of issues that's going to come to the forefront. And I just want people to be coming. And when it happens, you're not going to be scared. You can say, yep, Theresa said this was going to happen. Yep, this has happened, that happened. You'll be okay. You'll be able to navigate through those challenges and not succumb to them.
You don't need to bring smelling salts to your class because you know to be ready.
Right. So there's no cost to the application, and it's a two-way process. And I do a phone interview, and it's for them to get to know me. I want to know what you're going to bring to the table. Tell me, what are you going to bring to the table? So I want to know that. So this way, everybody is on board. Everybody understands the challenges, and you're good to go. Then I know I have the lessons, and you're going to be emotionally prepared. That's what I want.
I love it, Theresa. That was actually something our board's been talking about too, is making sure that the journey is the right journey for each person, because it's a mission.
It is a mission, and that's why we did that.
Depend on us.
So that's all the application is. It takes maybe 10, 15 minutes, open-ended questions. What are you going to bring to the table? So we get to know one another. So that's why we did that. So what do we need? What do you need to know? Well, we made it doable, accessible, and affordable. And each course is their own CEUs. So you learn and you pay as you go, which is great. I'm nationally certified from the NCBTMB for 45.5 credits to become a certified equine lymphedema therapist. To complete the certificate, you got to move at your own pace because the equine industry, let me tell you, every equine massage therapist earns every cent that they make. You're dealing with that are 1,800 pounds. You're not dealing with that in a human. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have large, morbidly obese patients that you're dealing with, but there's a big difference. So anyway, here's the thing you need to know. So know the laws in your state. This is your scope of practice. So you go to this state, this website, this link, and you look up your state. They'll tell you what the laws are regarding animal massage. And know your limitations are animals of prey, and it's either fight or flight, and they're not people. So it's not if you get injured, it's when. It's just a fact. That's all there is. If you haven't been kicked, bit of, pooped on, peed on, that's what you're dealing with because that is what it is. I worked on a horse that was, how much was 2,800 pounds. He was an oversized draft horse. You couldn't find me behind him. You would at foot take one step to move over, and he had the capacity to throw me 3 to 4 feet, only because his sheer size. Wasn't mean, wouldn't be vindictive. It's just you got to know what you're dealing with. And those who are older, this is not Mr. Ed. Right. I know the people our age who know Mr. Ed, who knows the talking horse. Okay, so here's my thing. When you grieve not, for which you love most in him may be clearer in the absence, as the mountain to the climber is clear from the plain. From Cahill Equine brand. And that's what I become, believe in the possible. And brought me where I am today. And I am committed because of what they taught me, that I in turn are going to be committed to help them, because I am the voice for them, because there is no one.
What a beautiful work you have done, Theresa. And I just, like I said, knowing the statistics, they were barely there. There was barely a pulse in this country 23 years ago for humans, much less for animals, and that someone is out there speaking for horses. And I can see down the road here, it's going to be for cats, for dogs,
Yep.
for everything living and breathing that has a lymph system. And you've been a pioneer.
Yeah.
And this is amazing. And there's a lot of people here that are asking some questions. Would you like to take some?
Sure,
I'm just
absolutely.
I didn't, all of a sudden I start seeing it like popcorn. So guys, I'm going to go to the chat here and see if I can get some of these questions up here. So let's see what we had. Not to digress, but would you just wrap the extremity, or is there a lymphatic drainage treatment for the horse's body that you would do first before applying the wrap?
You always do massage first before you do a wrap. Always.
So
just like humans. Absolutely. Because it's the same principle to get everything moving. And here's the thing, and this was really an amazing, I can't share the picture because it's a legal issue, but this horse, somebody came for training and she was a volunteer at a rescue. Like, and I taught her MLD, and it was she went home on a Sunday night. Monday she did it, and she called me up. She goes, nothing happened. Tuesday she called me, and I believed I saved her recording. She was crying on the phone. His leg had to go down maybe 50-60%, and it was like overnight. And they urinated out just like we do. So it was really exciting to see. So you always start massage first and then wrap. Besides, it gets them relaxed. They love it. They get very in tune to it.
So Stacey, or Larry, he asked a question, can we use the MLD protocol on other four-legged animals? And just in general, everyone, I did work in the college next to the vet program, and we were working on a protocol for your, four-legged furry friends. You can work on, we can do cats and dogs. The only thing, like Theresa was saying, is as far as charging and monetizing that, we have to be really careful within each of our own states, because there could be scope of practice issues with the vets. So you got to know what your scope is in your state if you're charging for something. But if you want to work on like your own cat or dog and utilize the protocol, there is protocol for other animals.
Absolutely. In fact, we were at a horse show, and this was several years ago, and two people came. One was from Canada, and she had a dog with it in the neck, lymphedema in the neck, and they eventually euthanized the dog. Another lady came up from New York, had a German Shepherd. Same thing. She had the dog had it in the neck, and do get it. But it's not common. My vet's never seen it, but they do get it. They have a lymphatic system.
You know what? I'm going to take everybody off mute for a minute, because Leslie in particular, I was mentioning her. Leslie's very tied into the Florida community. And there's several here that have connections that they'd like to connect you with too. And I see Stacy Lee is also saying I will ask my acquaintance. She has a horse farm. People would like to get your magazine article. And so I'm just going to pull this off. Guys, I'm going to pull off the mute. So if you have some questions that you would like to ask her, I'm going to start unmuting. There you go. So I'm asking everyone to unmute themselves so that they can ask Teresa some questions. So yep, there I go. I can see some microphones. Hey guys, what would you like to ask Mother Teresa about horses?
Teresa, this is Leslie. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can, Leslie.
Renee Gelfi works with horses and has a program, I think, for maybe disabled kids. Excuse me. And she's in Loxahatchee, and I will follow up with her. And her friend and another chapter member of mine has horses on her property. One is in Lake Worth and one is in Loxahatchee. Excuse
Happy
me.
to. Listen, I'm looking for a place in Florida.
I'm really not sick. I just swallowed down the wrong tube. I hate when I do that. And also, as the editor of the FSMTA Massage Message magazine, I totally want to connect with you because we want your article in the September issue. So she can give you my email, and as soon as and I'm definitely interested in wherever you go, and if it happens to be close to the Ohio Valley in Ohio, oh, it's a twofer. I could